Today, we're diving into something that might just challenge some common assumptions, the Quran's call to reason.
So let's just jump right in with a huge question. Are religion and reason fundamentally incompatible? Is faith all about believing without evidence and reason all about evidence without belief? This debate feels like it's at the heart of our modern world.
And look, a lot of the time, when this topic comes up, Islam gets portrayed as a system that's against critical thinking and science. We see that view in headlines, we hear it in debates. But what does its actual primary source text say? Well, that's what we're going to dig into.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at a really surprising command you find throughout the Quran. Then, we'll see how the text itself actually uses logic. Third, we'll check out its stance on evidence versus just blind faith. And finally, we'll explore its open invitation to learn.
Okay, so let's get into that first point. This surprising command. You might expect a religious text to demand unquestioning belief, right? But what we find in the Quran is this really striking, heavy emphasis on using your intellect.
And let's be clear, this isn't some gentle suggestion tucked away in a footnote. The Quran is incredibly direct about this. It doesn't just encourage you to reason, it actually and explicitly condemns people who don't. That's a really crucial thing to get from the start.
I mean, just listen to the language here. This verse, from chapter 8, verse 22, calls those who don't use their reason the worst of creatures. Wow, that's some incredibly strong wording, framing the failure to think not just as a mistake, but as a serious spiritual problem. And that's not all. This theme of consequences just keeps popping up. The Quran makes it clear that neglecting your ability to reason isn't some neutral choice. It can have pretty terrible results.
Take a look at this verse from chapter 67. It's this powerful cry of regret from people who are in a state of punishment. And what's their big regret? If only we had listened or reasoned. Notice how those two things are linked. Listening to get the information and then reasoning to process it. So, what are you supposed to apply all this reasoning to? Well, the Quran basically throws open the doors to the entire universe and says, look, the cosmos, the earth, life itself, it's all presented as this huge collection of signs, just waiting for an inquisitive mind to examine and understand them.
And this verse right here, from chapter 41, it just perfectly captures that spirit. It's an open invitation to do empirical observation, to look outward at the universe, the horizons, and to look inward at our own biology and consciousness within themselves, all to figure out what's true.
Okay, so we've established that the command to reason is there, loud and clear. But does the book itself practice what it preaches? Let's dive into some examples of actual rational arguments that are right there in the scripture itself.
You'll find that the text often uses stories not just to teach a moral, but to actually walk you through a logical process. And one of the most famous examples of this is the story of Abraham searching for the nature of God.
So check out his method here, which is laid out in chapter 6. It's a classic process of elimination, all based on what he can see. First, he looks at a star, but nope, it sets. He figures a divine being can't be temporary, so he moves on to the moon, but the same thing happens. He even considers the sun, the biggest, brightest thing in the sky, but it disappears too. So, through pure logic, he arrives at his conclusion. The true God must be the constant, unseen creator behind it all.
And what's cool is, he doesn't just keep this logic to himself. He actually uses it to challenge other people. As you can see in these verses from chapter 21, his argument against idol worship is totally rational. Why worship something that has literally no power to help you or hurt you? And then he hits them with that same pointed question we keep seeing, do you not use your reason?
And all of this leads us to something really critical. This idea of choosing evidence over just blind faith. The Quran actually lays out a clear principle for verification.
Just look at the contrast here on this slide. It's so stark. On one side, you have the classic argument for blind tradition. Hey, we'll just do what our ancestors did. And on the other, you have the Quran's direct pushback from chapter 2. Even if their fathers did not reason, it's a clear statement that truth is more important than tradition. So here's the bottom line, the core principle. The Quran lays down a fundamental rule. Don't base your life and your beliefs on hearsay or assumptions. Simply put, do not follow what you have no knowledge of.
I mean, how modern does this sound? This verse from chapter 49 is basically a direct order to fact-check your sources, especially if that news is coming from someone who might have an agenda. It's like a 1400-year-old guide to media literacy. It's pretty amazing.
And it's not just about the information you receive. It's also about the claims you make. The Quran sets up what's now a pillar of law and science,
The burden of proof is on the person making the claim.
Yeah, you can't get much clearer than this, can you? This challenge from Chapter 2 is this simple, powerful demand that you hear everywhere today, from courtrooms to science labs. Got a claim? Great. Show your evidence. Bring your proof.
So if reason is a command and evidence is a must-have, then what does that say about the act of learning itself? Well, it means the pursuit of knowledge has to be a pretty big deal.
And that is exactly what we find. Learning isn't treated as some dangerous path that might lead you astray. No, instead, gaining knowledge is framed as one of the highest things you can do, an act that actually brings you closer to understanding the truth.
And think about this. The ideal prayer, the one taught directly in the text in chapter 20, isn't for money or power or status. It's for learning. My Lord, increase me in knowledge. That says so much about what's truly considered valuable.
So when you pull it all together, what's the core message we're seeing? It's this consistent four-part mandate to use our reason, to demand evidence, to reflect on the world, and to constantly, always seek more knowledge.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. This intellectual spirit had real-world consequences. Many scholars point to this as one of the key ingredients that fueled the incredible scientific boom of the Islamic Golden Age, which gave us major advances in everything from algebra and medicine to optics and astronomy. The principle inspired the practice.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. If a 1,400-year-old text, one that's foundational for over 1 billion people today, so strongly champions reason, evidence, and critical thinking, what does that do to our modern debate about faith and science? How does that change the conversation?